Welcome back to the deep dive. So you've handed us this incredible stack of material. We're talking fragmented military logs, whispered prophecies, harrowing personal
It's a
accounts.
lot, and it's dense.
It is. And our mission today is to really bring some clarity to it, especially when you're dealing with a future that has, well, already broken.
Hmm.
So today we are diving into a really complex synthesis. We're not just, summarizing a disaster. We're charting a cosmic conflict. And it's all set against this brutal post-apocalyptic backdrop.
Right.
The sources detail a world that's been so ravaged by, frankly, human failure. We're talking nuclear war, chemical poisons, plagues, that it's just tumbled backward.
It's almost medieval.
Exactly. A brutal medieval state.
Yeah.
And this is far from a simple survival story. Our mission is to synthesize these fragmented narratives.
Yeah.
You have the desperate, super pragmatic accounts of just trying to live another day.
Right alongside these profoundly magical and often tragic quests for salvation. We're looking for that common thread, the one that links the solitary sacrifice of a warrior with the gritty hope of these street kids.
And the emergence of this ancient, hidden magic. We're going to be focusing on three main story currents, and they're all deeply intertwined. First, there's the quest of Logan Tom.
A knight of the word. One of the last.
Yeah. Then you have the fight for existence of a tribe of street kids. They call themselves the Ghosts. Highly organized, incredibly resourceful.
And finally, and this is where it just expands in scope, the sudden, desperate emergence of a legendary magical race, the Elves, who are now being dragged right into humanity's collapse.
Before we get into any of that, though, we have to understand the backdrop. We can't emphasize enough the sheer scale of this global apocalypse.
No, this wasn't a single event. It wasn't one bomb going off. It was a slow, catastrophic spiral. And it was all driven by human negligence and, desperation.
We're talking about a full-on environmental collapse.
Yeah.
The air, the water, the soil. It's also poisoned that just being outside the walls of these fortified compounds can literally kill you.
And then came the biological warfare.
Right. Plagues that just swept across the globe. They wiped out, nearly a fifth of the world's population?
The sources estimate the early plagues alone killed about 500 million people worldwide.
500 million.
Yeah. And the names they gave these plagues, they tell the story of the fear they inspired. One of the worst was called the quick drain.
Just the name is terrifying.
The accounts say it causes the victim's face to turn black and leathery with this frightening speed. It leads to a very swift and just agonizing death.
So when the food runs out and the environment is toxic and everyone is sick, that societal breakdown leads, I guess, inevitably to the final conflicts.
The Great Wars. Chemical and nuclear attacks that just annihilated what was left of civilization. And this is the world that our main figures, Logan, Hawk, Angel, this is the world they inherited. A world collapsing into anarchy where the only rule is just immediate survival.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with society. How did it partition itself after the Great Wars? Because that seems to define everything. Who gets privilege and who gets persecuted?
It really does. After the collapse, the survivors basically split into two groups, and it was all defined by who had the resources to build walls. On one side, you had the compounds.
These are the walled cities.
Exactly. Massive fortified cities built as refuges. Places like the Colosseum or the fortress at Anaheim.
But they weren't exactly utopias.
Oh, not at all. They very quickly became symbols of the very failure they were designed to escape. They operated on this decades-long siege mentality. They represented immense privilege, hoarding the last bits of technology, food, clean water.
So they became symbols of what? Tyranny and selfishness.
That's the exact phrase from one of the accounts. They embodied the greed and, the lack of global cooperation that arguably caused the Great Wars to begin with.
And what's so crucial here is that all that privilege, all that hoarding, it didn't actually translate to real security. The sources frame them as these vulnerable, isolated death traps.
That's the tragic irony. We see it in the accounts of compounds like the Midline slave camp.
Midline was legendary, right? Supposedly impenetrable.
Absolutely. It was built with massive steel structures, deep ditches that could swallow vehicles whole, protected by advanced tech. It was meant to last for centuries.
But it fell.
They all fall eventually. The narratives make that brutally clear. They fall because they're isolated and because no amount of concrete or steel could stop the psychological warfare waged against them, or, as we'll get into, the inexorable advance of the real enemy.
Okay, so on the other side of that societal divide, you have the outsiders. These are the survivors who were exposed.
Exposed to everything. catastrophic levels of radiation, chemical weapons. They weren't just poor or unlucky. Their bodies were physically transformed by the poisons of the old world.
And they were branded.
Immediately, as freaks or mutants, banished from the compounds, not for any crime, but just because of how they looked and the fear they inspired. They are the living, breathing evidence of humanity's failure, and for that, they were condemned to the ravaged lands outside the walls.
What's fascinating is that the source material doesn't just lump them all together. It gives us these very specific and frankly terrifying classifications for the new species they encounter out there.
It does. It's a whole new ecosystem.
Right.
We hear about the lizards, who are defined by their, well, reptilian skin. They're massive, heavily muscled, and extremely dangerous in a fight.
And then the croaks.
The croaks. They're the apex predators of the ruined cities. The sources say a bite or even a scratch from a croak is almost instantly fatal. Because their bodies are so saturated with the poisons and plagues of the old world that they transmit this incurable, super-fast infection. They're basically walking biological weapons. They sit at the top of the food chain in the decaying urban centers.
And there are others that survive the initial blasts, right?
Yeah.
In different ways.
Yeah, like the spiders. They have these simian-like features, but they're noted as being shy, reclusive. And there's a historical insight here. The spiders were one of the first groups to burrow deep underground when the bombs first fell.
So they survived the initial pulse.
They did, but that deep exposure underground is what drove their specific mutation. We also get these fleeting mentions of others, moles, pukes. It suggests this diverse, constantly evolving ecosystem of mutated survivors.
So against this backdrop, the failing walled cities on one hand, terrifying new life forms on the other, we meet our core group of survivors, the ghosts. And they represent a radical shift in strategy.
They're not just surviving, they are highly organized. They are a tribe, a family of street children. They operate out of the ruins of Seattle, and they chose the Pioneer Square underground as their hideout. It's sophisticated.
And their whole existence is just an exercise in scraping by.
Completely defined by scarcity. They rely on scavenged, prepackaged foods. You know, stuff that's years past its sell-by date. A little bit of electricity from these small, scavenged, solar-powered generators. They get it. They understand the old world is gone, it's useless, and they have to build a new one based on pure pragmatism.
And their guiding philosophy is incredible, especially considering their age. They operate on this principle: we haunt the ruins.
Which is such a powerful statement.
It's a total rejection of the past. The past belonged to the adults who broke the world. The future belongs to the kids who survived it. They don't waste time with nostalgia. They embrace the joy of discovery, like when Owl finds a history book.
Right, but not for sentimentality. It's for knowledge, for tactics.
Which is crucial for their survival infrastructure. A lot of that is maintained by a kid named Fix-It.
Fix-It is their master builder. He's responsible for the heavy security doors, the reinforced window shutters, the rainwater catchment systems on the roof. He even rebuilt Owl's wheelchair after she had a bad fall.
But the sources also point out the irony with Fix-It. He's this brilliant, talented kid.
But he's chronically unreliable.
Why?
Because he's constantly distracted trying to fix these old, broken-down machines he can't even identify anymore. Useless pieces of ancient, dead technology. It feels like a subtle piece of commentary, you know? Even the most skilled among them can't completely resist the allure of the failed past.
They also have this impressive discipline. When they move through the ruins, it's not a chaotic scramble. It's in a tight, structured formation.
The Wing T formation, which Owl, their resident intellectual, taught them after reading about it in one of her precious history books.
It just shows that knowledge, even when it's divorced from the technology that created it, is still power.
Absolutely. But if they have strong physical defenses and all this knowledge, their single greatest security system is, it's not technological at all. It's their dog.
Cheney.
Cheney. He is the ultimate example of the New World's priorities. He's massive, wolfish, and the description is so poetic, a junkyard dog made out of thrown-away parts.
And the name. It's a piece of dark humor from their leader, Hawk, after a long-dead politician.
Right. He called him a bulldog spoiling for a fight, and Cheney is their early warning system. He can sense threats, even freaks and mutants, up to 5 minutes before they're visible. He's their perimeter alarm, their guardian, and he's the emotional anchor for the whole tribe. His loyalty is absolute, and frankly, he's probably the only reason the ghosts have survived this long.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the biggest military threat to all of humanity, it turns out, isn't the radiation-spawned croaks or the lizards. It's an enemy that represents the ultimate failure of humanity itself.
The once men.
The once men.
That-
And the terrible forces that command them.
They're chilling because they blur the line between human and monster. Outwardly, they look mostly human.
Mostly.
Yeah, except for their eyes, which are described as blank, dead. Their expressions are just empty. But inwardly, the demons have performed this terrifying operation on them. Their humanity has been erased, their identity remade.
So they're just predatory, animalistic killing machines.
Yeah.
The sources say they were subverted by these false promises from the demons. Power, safety, whatever.
And what makes them so strategically devastating is their complete lack of any psychological limits. They are the perfect siege soldiers.
They don't fear dying.
They don't need clean water or good food, which the human defenders in the compounds desperately need. And they are not sane. They're tireless, inexorable. As the Night Angel Perez notes in her account of the compound sieges, the fighting might devolve into medieval tactics, battering rams, scaling ladders, but the once men always win.
Why?
Because they can simply afford to throw more bodies at the walls than humanity can.
And these once men are what? Mentored, are created.
The sources are a bit hazy, but the rumors suggest that demons literally create them from the soulless shells of humans who have given up their will. This is a war for the soul, not just for territory.
And we encounter two major demonic figures in these accounts. The first is the strategist.
Findo Gask, often called the Old Man. And what's fascinating here, and what goes beyond just, simple villainy, is his motivation. He is driven by an insatiable desire to expose the deep and pervasive failings of humanity.
So he's not just a monster, he's a philosopher.
In a terrifying way, yes. Gask's strategy suggests he's less interested in just chaotic destruction and more in proving a point about human worthlessness. The collapse for him isn't a victory, it's a demonstration. It's a vindication of his choice to abandon humanity. He wants to wipe them out, yes, but only after making absolutely certain they understand that they brought this all on themselves. This philosophical malice is what makes him so formidable.
And then there's Delorine. She brings a much more visceral, personal element to the war.
Delorine is a key female demon. She's scaly, physically intimidating. She can transform and move on all fours with this terrifying, unnatural speed.
Angel Perez describes her as a perversion of a Knight of the Word.
Right, and her motivation is pure malice and vengeance, aimed specifically at the knights. She actively hunts them. Her stated goal is to mount a knight's head on a stake. She is the physical rage, while Gask is the strategic intellect.
Okay, so you have the strategist, the hunter, and then this third, more insidious element of the enemy, the feeders.
The feeders aren't soldiers. They're not even really physical. They're the manifestation of the dark energy itself.
Shadowy, insubstantial forms.
That are almost invisible to most people. They exist to feed on the darker emotions of human beings. The sources paint this chilling picture of them swarming and twisting around battlefields, literally consuming the pain, the misery, the despair generated by the fighting and the dying.
And this is a crucial piece of the lore.
Yeah.
Only certain people can see them.
Specifically, the Knights of the Word, like Angel and Logan. For them, the feeders are a constant, loathsome presence. Angel describes the sensation as feeling like a spider crawling on her skin. It's this profound, visceral discomfort caused by the presence of this feeding darkness. They are the psychological footprint of the void being poured into the physical world, infecting humanity from the inside out.
This deep spiritual warfare. It brings us directly to Logan Tom and the cosmic conflict that really defines his whole existence, the war between the word and the void.
We have to be clear about what these concepts mean because they are the foundation for everything that happens from here on out.
Okay, so let's define the stakes. If the compounds are the failing institutions of the old world, the word and the void are. They're the two ultimate forces struggling for the fate of reality itself.
Exactly. The word represents order, creation, hope, the possibility of a future. The lady, who the knights serve, is the voice and the manifestation of this force.
And the void is the opposite.
The void is entropy, chaos, despair, the final destructive end of all things. The knights of the word are paladins. Their sole purpose is to serve the lady, fight the dark things, and keep this precarious balance of the word's magic in check against the influence of the void.
And Logan's path into this war, it was born in this immediate catastrophic trauma 20 years before our story starts, during the breach of the midline compound.
We have a searing account of that night. Logan, who's just a boy then, was fleeing with his parents, Jack and his mother, and his younger siblings, Tyler and Megan. They were rushing for a trap door and escape tunnel.
Yeah, his father was carrying something important, a piece of lost tech.
A Tyson 33 flechette, short-barreled, and the description of this weapon is key. It wasn't just a gun. It was so powerful it could apparently tear a hole through a foot of solid stone.
That level of firepower speaks to the desperation, the intensity of the collapse, even inside the secure walls.
Right. So as Jack and the mother stood by the door, the main entrance just blew apart. A fiery, overwhelming explosion that consumed both parents instantly. Logan was thrown violently down a stairway, landing on his sister Megan.
And in the chaos, his brother.
His older brother Tyler, dazed, grabs the flechette. They run into the dark corridor. But the escape was brief. Logan remembers seeing the bodies of Tyler and Megan, eyes wide, staring, lying still and bleeding among dozens of others after a second massive blast ripped through the earth near the tunnel opening.
He was holding the flechette.
Clinging to it, until a man, part of a desperate rear guard, his face painted for combat, grabbed him, forced him to run, and gave him one instruction: do not look back. His entire family, his entire past was just annihilated in an instant.
That trauma, it had to have fueled his early existence.
Right.
A quest for pure vengeance.
It did. But his eventual service as a knight was guided by a Sinisippi, a man named Olish Aman, or Two Bears. He became Logan's mentor and gave him the instrument of his new calling.
The Black Staff.
The Black Staff. A long black weapon, beautifully carved with runes and infused with the magic of the word. Logan didn't consciously choose it. He just took it when he fled from Two Bears camp, and he realized over time that it was a tool, a channel for the word's power.
It can be used aggressively, right? Summoning fire.
Purifying fire, yes, and defensively to banish spirits and hold back the darkness. But Two Bears delivered this crushing, world-altering truth that changed the entire focus of Logan's war. Logan assumed his destiny was to just endlessly hunt and kill demons to avenge his family.
And Two Bears told him that was futile.
Utterly futile. The insight was sobering. Humanity is fighting a war it cannot win with brute force. There are simply too many demons, and the world is sliding too fast down this steep slope of collapse. Two Bears warn Logan that a fire is coming, huge and engulfing.
Not metaphorical fire.
No. He was warning him that the demons had acquired nuclear capabilities, and they intended to use them to wipe out most of what was left of humanity and themselves in one final nihilistic act.
So survival no longer rests on military victories. It rests on an entirely new, magical objective.
Finding the gypsy morph.
And this becomes Logan's pivotal new quest. The morph is the child of a legendary knight, Nest Freemark. It's a creature of raw, powerful, wild magic.
Right, it's a magical anomaly that was trapped by another knight, John Ross, and was later born to Nest after this profound magical interaction. And this is where the lore gets very specific about the nature of this thing. Nest Freemark died nearly 80 years before Logan's current timeline.
Yet the morph is described as being almost 80, but still only a child. It hasn't aged like a human.
And that single detail explains why it's the key to salvation. It's a creature of pure magic, fundamentally outside the laws of human biology and entropy. It isn't subject to the failure that killed the rest of the world. It exists outside the collapsed timeline.
Making it the only entity capable of providing a true magical reset.
Exactly. And if Logan succeeds in protecting this child, the word promises him his ultimate reward. He will find Findo Gask, the demon responsible for the midline assault that killed his family.
But a mission that immense comes with a terrible cost. It demands his total emotional surrender. He's constantly haunted by the past, not just his dead family, but the memory of his former ally, Michael Poole.
The memory of Michael Poole is the secondary trauma that constantly threatens to undo Logan. Michael believed the war was completely hopeless. He went mad. He turned on Logan, tried to kill them both rather than be captured and thrown into one of the death camps.
So Logan was forced to choose.
And in the end, he failed to save the man who had saved him as a boy. The guilt from that, the grief, the waking visions, they constantly impede his focus.
Which leads to his ultimate defining moment in the Rocky Mountains.
He's overwhelmed by despair, by the weight of every person he's ever failed, and he inadvertently summons the spirits of the dead. The ghosts of his past literally rise to confront him, including the spectral forms of his brother Tyler and his sister Megan.
It's the ultimate internal crisis.
He realizes in that moment that the past, however deeply he feels it, is a weapon of the void. It anchors him to vengeance and despair, and that prevents him from serving the future. He understands that to be a true instrument of the word, he has to let go of his past entirely.
And the sacrifice he makes is agonizing.
He uses the purifying fire from the black staff to consume the ghosts, consciously letting go of his memories. The source is clear on this. The faces of his brother and sister grow vague, and then they're gone. Forever.
It's not just forgetting.
No, it's magically banishing them, making it impossible for them to ever return to haunt him or even comfort him. The result is this massive, hollow ache in his heart, a permanent void where his grief and love used to be. But by making that terrible amputation of his emotional self, he's finally free, wholly dedicated to finding the gypsy morph and ensuring the future survives, whatever the personal cost.
So what does this all mean? The focus shifts now from the man doing the seeking to the boy he seeks. Hawk, the leader of the ghosts in the ruins of Seattle. This street kid is about to discover he carries the weight of humanity's entire magical future.
And Hawk's leadership among the ghosts, it's built on something deeper than just organization. It's built on belief. He holds that tribe together by projecting this absolute certainty in his dream, his vision. He convinces them that their future is real and they can reach it.
And Owl, the intellectual of the group, she supports this.
Perfectly. By reading them stories from her history books, specifically these tales of the boy and his children going to the promised land, and the kids, they equate that legend directly to Hawk's own vision for a new life.
But the sanctuary they've built in Pioneer Square, it's rapidly being dismantled by this growing external threat. Candle, the smallest girl, the one with bright red hair who has premonitions.
She's the first to sense it, the first to hear the voices warning them, and the physical evidence starts to pile up. At first it's subtle, but then it becomes terrifying. Hawk finds a dead lizard, a 6-foot-plus, heavily muscled mutant that has been viciously all torn up.
Which is not normal.
Not at all. Then he finds an entire nest of croaks, the top predators on the street also torn to pieces. The level of violence is unprecedented. It suggests something far stronger, far more brutal than any normal freak or rival gang is operating in the ruins.
And that threat is physically confirmed when it penetrates their supposedly secure, deep underground hideout.
A giant, monstrous centipede attacks. And it proves that the compound defenses that Fix-It built, however ingenious they were, are critically porous to a new threat that's emerging from below the Earth itself.
The centipede attack is devastating.
It nearly kills Cheney, who fights with the ferocity of a wolf, sacrificing his own safety to protect the kids, but he's overwhelmed and severely wounded.
How do they stop it?
It takes the quick thinking of another kid, Sparrow, who jams 2 high-powered electrical prods into the joints between the creature's armor plates to finally stop it. But the close call proves their safe haven is already compromised.
And the threat is further contextualized by what happens to the neighboring tribe, the cats.
All right. Hawk investigates and finds a massacre. The victims, including their leader, Tiger, and a dying child named Persia, their bodies were mutilated, crushed, decapitated, or killed by this strange purplish mark on the neck.
The centipede.
The sources strongly implied this mark is the signature of the centipede's venomous bite. It confirms the imminent danger to the ghosts.
And it's into this chaos that Logan Tom finally tracks his target. He's guided by a magical artifact.
The finger bones of Nest Freemark, the morph's mother, they confirm the presence of the morph in Seattle. But initially, the bones point away from the children, which really confuses Logan.
The moment of revelation comes, ironically, when Hawk is captured.
Yeah, he's captured by compound guards after venturing out to meet his girlfriend. In the compound prison, Logan finally confronts Hawk. He explains the history of the morph and gives Hawk the bones.
And when Hawk touches them,
he receives this powerful, sweeping vision. It's a torrent of memory that is not his own. He sees himself traveling with John Ross, the knight who trapped the magical entity in the first place. He sees himself being born to Nest Freemark. With stunning clarity, this street kid realizes the impossible. He is the gypsy morph.
And that innate magical power, it manifests almost immediately after.
As soon as he's briefly released, yeah.
Yeah.
Hawk rushes back to the underground to find Cheney dying. His wounds from the centipede attack are horrific, mortal.
Not Hawk.
In that moment of intense focus, grief, and love for his dog, Hawk cradles Cheney, and the pure corrective magic of the morph just flows through him. Cheney's severe, potentially fatal injuries heal instantly, leaving only old white scars.
So that confirms not just his identity,
but the immense restorative power he wields. It marks him as the potential savior of the species.
the combination of these events, the centipede attack, Cheney's near death, Hawk's self-discovery, It forces Hawk and Owl to a conclusion.
They have to leave Seattle immediately. They have to fulfill the vision, move to higher, safer ground, away from the contaminated, dangerous tunnels.
But Hawk's most profound commitment is a human one, to Tessa, his girlfriend, inside the compound.
And this is such a critical contrast to Logan Tom. Logan was forced to surgically amputate his past and his emotions to survive. Hawk refuses to let go of his human connection. He sees their union as this unbreakable commitment in his heart.
So despite the threat of nuclear fire, demon invasion, the centipede returning, he won't leave without her.
He refuses, even at the risk of his own life and the safety of his entire tribe.
Which is what leads to their capture.
Ultimately, yes. He risks meeting Tessa to convince her to join the Ghosts. They're caught by compound guards. The chairman of the directorate, a man named Ethan Cole, reveals the charge. Treason for stealing compound medicine, a high-value drug called plenitin, which Hawk was trying to get for the dying child from the Cats tribe, Persia.
And the response from the compound leadership, in its tyrannical fear, is swift and brutal.
Immediate execution, scheduled to be thrown from the walls at sunset. Tessa tries desperately to invoke marriage bonding rights to save him, but her own mother, who is present, cruelly rejects her, calls her crippled and useless without her father, effectively condemning her own child to death.
And Logan Tom.
He arrives at the compound gates shortly after Hawk's capture, guided by the finger bones, which now point directly into the heart of the compound. His timing is desperate. He's just hours away from the scheduled execution, needing to confirm Hawk's identity before he's lost forever. The entire quest for salvation rests on Logan reaching that boy in time.
Okay, let's connect the dots here. We've followed the human struggle to morph's emergence, but the scope of this magical conflict is about to expand dramatically. It starts to encompass these legendary beings that were previously thought to be just myths.
Right. Before she can reach her next target compound, Angel Perez, the other Knight of the Word, is intercepted. She meets a creature of pure fairy magic, a tatterdemalion named Ailey.
And Angel is a fierce veteran warrior, her training and strategy.
She was trained by the Knight Johnny, who also used a flechette, like Logan's father. Angel's whole mission up to this point has been purely focused on humanitarian rescue. She's led over 200 children and women out of various fallen compounds, including the legendary Colosseum.
But Ailey delivers a stark command from the lady.
A game-changing one. Angel's immediate rescue mission must end. The lady states very clearly that Angel has saved all the children she can save. The focus has to shift, because the underlying cosmic conflict is tipping dangerously toward the void, and humanity is on the brink of being wiped out for good.
And this leads to a stunning revelation that suddenly connects the mythological past to this terrifying present.
The elves are real.
They're not just storybook creatures.
No, they exist. They're hidden in the dense forests near the Willamette in Oregon, a place they call the Sintra. And the tragedy is that, despite all their magic, they are being suffocated by the same poisons and wars that have ravaged the human world.
And crucially, the environmental decay has weakened their magical defenses.
It's caused them to lose the protective power of their ancient fairy magic. Their whole society is crumbling.
So their salvation, Angel learns, lies in finding a lost magical artifact.
The Loden Elfstone. The Loden is the key that will allow them to travel to a new, safe world. It's an escape route from the poisoned earth. And Angel, as one of the last remaining active knights, is tasked with this incredibly dangerous search. She becomes a knight-errant to protect a race she didn't even know existed 24 hours ago.
That's an immense, sudden burden to place on her.
It is. And Ailey, the tatterdemalion, volunteers to be her guide and her conscience, and she uses that specific word. She suggests that the nature of this journey is so grim and morally compromising that Angel is likely to misplace her own moral compass along the way.
The choices required to save an entire race
are rarely easy or clean.
Yeah. This expansion of the world reveals a fascinating parallel inside the elven society itself. Within their hidden sanctuary, there's this intense internal political debate. Paralysis, really. And it's centered around a character named Kirison.
Kirison is one of the chosen, and he's assigned to care for the Elcris, their sacred tree. The Elcris has been alive for hundreds of years, but it has started to speak. First to Orisha, the king's daughter, and now to Kirison.
And what is it saying?
It's warning them explicitly. They need the Elfstones, or their race will be consumed by the encroaching sickness from the human world. Kirison takes his oath as a chosen very seriously. He recognizes the absolute need for immediate action to save the tree, and by extension, their entire race.
Yet the response from the elven leadership It mirrors the failure of the human governments that caused the apocalypse in the first place.
It's a devastating parallel. The Elven King, Eris in Belarus, and the High Council, they're procrastinating. They look at the lifetime of the tree, which spans centuries, and they conclude that a delay of a few months is insignificant.
It's denial, a devastating display of denial in the face of a planetary emergency.
And the internal conflict, it exposes the immense fragility of even this ancient magical race. The sources detail how this political failure is also deeply personal. Arisha was the first to get the warning, but she refused to tell her father, the king, because she was afraid of what it would mean.
And the king.
The king, in turn, knows the search for the Loden is dangerous, possibly fatal. And in his reluctance to risk his only child, his heir, he is effectively delaying the salvation of the entire elven race. Their love and their fear are crippling their potential for survival.
So we've revealed this immense scope here. You have the finality of Logan's sacrifice of his own past, the sudden emerging magical destiny of the street kid Hawk, and in this stunning expansion of the conflict to include the legendary elves, who now have to rely on a human knight to find their ticket out.
And the underlying conflict between the word and the void is tipping. Dangerously. It's tipping toward absolute destruction. The massive threats, the impending nuclear fire, the relentless demon armies, the terrible monsters like the centipede emerging from the ground. They are forcing every previously isolated faction to act immediately.
Logan, Angel, Hawk, the elves.
Yeah.
They're all being forced to confront their fate at the same time.
And survival now hinges not on military might or technology, but on ancient, powerful, magical artifacts, the Loden, the Black Staff, and most profoundly on these deeply personal, emotional choices.
It's a fascinating contrast. Logan sacrificed his past for the future.
While Hawk is risking his future for a single profound human commitment to Tessa.
And the ghosts, the street children who are the future of humanity, they realized that living in a walled fortress was not the way to make that happen.
And if the old self-serving institutions, the walled compounds, the negligent human governments, and yes, even the procrastinating Elven Council, if they're all proven to be failures, then the only true path of salvation rests with what rises from the ashes. It rests on the raw, necessary courage and the protective power of the word, embodied by the children and the knights who reject the very isolation and selfishness that led to the collapse in the first place.
That's the crucial insight, isn't it? The ultimate battle won't be fought with flechettes and siege towers. It'll be fought by the will of those who choose community and commitment over fear and isolation.
Food for thought indeed. As we leave Logan Tom rushing against the clock to save the boy who is the key to the future, and Angel Perez racing north to save an entire mythological race that is paralyzed by its own internal failures.
That's it for this deep dive. We hope this has given you the context and the clarity you need to understand the immense stakes of this broken world.